Glad to have you join us again on Business Breakfast on iBrand TV. Charles Frakuha, iBrand TV senior analyst, joins me now live, I believe, in Delta State to do some analysis of some of the top business stories we're tracking at this hour. Charles, good morning, and trust you're good today.
Good morning. Thank you very much. You are correct. Reporting
Still in Delta State.
Live.
Okay, so let's look at some of the top business story we're tracking at this hour. This one here says President Bola Ahmed Tinubu Advisory Policy Advisory Committee, Council, if you would choose that word, has recommended the declaration of a state of emergency on revenue generation in the country. They are also calling for a merger of key revenue generating agencies such as the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Nigerian Customs Service, and the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency into one agency which will be known as the Nigerian Revenue Service, in order to enable the federal government have an efficient collection of all direct and indirect taxes as well as levies on behalf of the federal government. How do you react to this?
Well, the council should be seen to be working, and they've hit the ground running. That is also very good. However, I will not share their sentiment about merging custom services with NIMASA and, of course, with the Federal Inland Revenue Service. These agencies are statutory agencies created not only for Nigeria, but you have the International Customs Organization. So, merging custom with NIMASA. NIMASA also have their own international organization where they belong to. So I think these agencies should be left. The issue for me is not merging them. The issue for me is to make them more efficient in terms of their mandates. Customs know what they collect in terms of revenue and according to the government policy in which they are to operate on, their guidelines. The NIMASA also have their own kind of revenue or levies that they collect on behalf of the federal government. At the same time, the Federal Inland Revenue Service also have their own guidelines and operational guidelines as to what they collect for government in terms of tax. So for me, yes, it's good to declare a state of emergency in terms of our revenue collection. I agree with that. But merging these revenue agencies to one, I don't agree with them. These agencies can still function very well, operating separately.
So there is this submission that governments have a lot of agencies and ministries. So merger would be in a bit bring about some sense of efficiency in the operations of this agency. Now I want to ask you this question now. If peradventure the president agreed to this idea, this policy, this economic policy that is advisory council are putting in place, do you see this in any way deepening tax collection and optimizing operation expenditure of the federal government?
No, it will not. And I'm advising the president not to take that advice of merging. These agencies, like I said earlier, operate based on different operational guidelines and different types of revenue. So they should be left to specialize in their area and collect what they are supposed to collect. Merging them will not improve in terms of our tax collection. No. NIMASA has to do with safety and maritime agency. Custom has to do with revenue in terms of imports and exports. Federal Inland Revenue Service has to do with collection of tax, payee, as the case may be. So all these agencies, their functions are clearly different and separated. So merging them, again, I say, will not improve on any efficiency in terms of what they are already doing. For me, is to strengthen these organizations and see that they operate efficiently and optimally. And if you have issues in terms of revenue they are collecting is not optimal, then is to look at leadership of that agency and do a reform. And of course, also have a strong National Assembly that will do oversight function. It is not only the executive that will revamp this economy. The executive, the legislature, all has to be involved. So I think it will not improve in terms of merging this agency, in terms of collecting what they are supposed to collect.
Charles, you will agree with me that having the right economic team is very pivotal to the running of a successful economic management of any nation. And this this current administration have started making some kind of announcement and appointment. Now, with this kind of policy suggestion that the President's Policy Advisory Council is bringing to bear, doesn't this question the quality of the kind of people that the President is appointing into key roles in the economic affairs of this country?
Yes, the persons on that council, for me, are tested technocrats, or even some of them are politicians. They know what they want to do, and they are eager to really make a difference. In fact, they want to see that the next 100 days, they want to see milestone. Yes, I agree. But at the same time, they should not just jettison already existing and performing agencies and say, merge, merge, merge. No. We can see that Custom has been doing a very great job. So the only thing there is to ensure that we increase the manpower of Custom and ensure that they use modern facilities, modern technology to do their job. The same also applies to NIMASA. The same also applies to Federal Inland Revenue Agency. So, yes, the people in that council, they know the job, and we should just give them that opportunity to do the job. And at the end of the day, we just need to cooperate with them, because all Nigerians want to see that our economy improves, and of course, the standard of living, our quality of life also improves.
Let's quickly take a look at the next story that is making headline in the world of business today. And this is coming from the Manufacturers Association of Nigerian Man, saying that the country is losing, that's the sector is losing a huge amount of money due to inability of having stable power supply. And you will agree with me that power is very critical to the growth of any economy, for household and also for businesses. And they also say here that the country has experienced a decline from its ranking, that its world ranking in the area of ease of doing business, to 171 to 190. How does this information comes to you?
Well, thank you very much, Blessed. I am not surprised because everybody can, even the blind can see that Nigeria, we don't have power, no electricity. So manufacturers are only trying to reiterate what all of us are suffering. And it's very alarming to say that we are losing over 10 trillion naira on a yearly basis. It's a big calamity. I also advise the National Economic Council to even declare emergency, or the state of emergency on the power sector. You can't be losing 2% of your share of your GDP because of power, and you are saying you want to industrialize. There can be no industrialization without power. Let me even come specifically even to my local government here. Most of the barbing salons are shutting down. Most of the small businesses are shutting down. And we had to begin to think of other sources, because the grid that is supplying them, maybe it's Benin electricity, they don't see electricity at all. And even when it comes, maybe just once in the next 2 or 3 months. So you can say, how will these businesses survive? Mostly the SMEs. If you go to the city centers, in Asaba, in Warri, in Ughelli, come to Lagos, you will see that SMEs are collapsing and dying every day. And we are saying these SMEs provide over 80% of employment for our teeming youth. So electricity is key for any nation industrial development. Yes, they also made mention of the Electricity Act.
Yes, because I was going to ask you about that also. Because I really want to know in what way do you think the Electricity Act will bring about stability in electricity supply to the country?
Yes, it will have a lot to do in terms of electricity supply to the country for our industry. Of course, if well implemented, it's supposed to be a major game changer for that sector. And not only for manufacturers, also for domestic use. Now, how would that apply? Now, the Act is telling us that anyone may construct, own, operate, and undertaking for generating electricity. Now, before we've been told, however, some lawyers are telling us that is not correct, that you cannot generate your own electricity. A state cannot generate. A company cannot generate. But they've told us that we did not apply that law very well. Now, it has been made expressly that a particular company, Fakroa PLC, can generate their own electricity and send to the national grid. Make use of the excess sent to the national grid. State government can also do that. So you can see investors. So when there is a lot of people who generate their electricity, they use the excess they send to the national grid, we will see an improvement in the electricity supply. However, what this will imply, again, what that act said is not just providing electricity, generated electricity by the conventional means that we know. You can even go renewable. Solar is there. You can also use wind. You can also use geothermal, biomass, even the latest one, hydrogen. That is what that act has provided, that we can go renewable. So more people are now producing electricity, supplying to the national grid. Then they are also taking into consideration the environment. So you can see we are generating a lot. That is, if the act is properly implemented, there needs to be an oversight function. And if you look at that act properly, it is even saying, apart from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, you also have state governments. If they pass their electricity markets, that law, they pass it into law. They can also have their own regulatory agency to regulate the electricity generation, electricity transmission, electricity distribution, and also metering in their own state. However, you can only do that within the borders of your state. You cannot transmit outside your own state. Fine. With this, you will see a lot of supply to the electricity market, and with government regulation, I see that act as the game changer for Nigeria's industrial development.
Okay, we are also hopeful that the prospect and the benefit of that act will also reach maximum results so that everyone will benefit from it. Because trust me, with the lack of stable electricity supply in the country, a lot of people, especially small-scale businesses, like you made mention of, are really suffering from that. And we hope that this renewed hope that this administration has promised us, everyone begin to see the impact and also benefit from it. But finally, as we wrap up this segment now, let's look at this final story. Air travelers are complaining about the high fare being charged by airline for domestic flight. They are saying that despite the decline in the cost of aviation fare, which is known as Jet A1, airline operators are still charging 60,000 naira for a one-way ticket for domestic flights in Nigeria. Isn't this too much for citizens who are already trying to get a balance, trying to grapple to the new standard of living with the removal of FIP subsidy? And also, why is it that in Nigeria, when the price of a thing is high, it is very difficult, extremely difficult for it to come down? How do you react to this?
Yes, it's really quite unfortunate. But again, the Air Ministry of Aviation and all the other agencies that are supposed to regulate the operations of the airline, well, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit difficult to begin to tell them when it comes to what they will charge. Because some of the agencies that are in that aviation ministry, they also collect their own service charge. So I also want them to reduce their own, like the fan, they also collect, NAMA, they also collect their own service charge. I also want them to maybe reduce some of these their service charge so that the airline operators can also now reduce the air ticket. I mean, I flew from Lagos to Asaba. Like you said, I paid 60,000 naira one-way ticket. That is quite expensive.
Extremely
it used
expensive.
to be maybe, yeah, very expensive. It used to be maybe 30, 40, thereabout, as the case may be. Now, we're all happy that the aviation fuel, which one you properly call Jet A1 fuel, since the price has come down to as low as 630 naira per liter, that used to be sold for over 1,000 naira per liter.
Yes.
We expect the airline industry to also follow suit. However, I know that if you book a bit earlier, the chances that you might not pay up to that 60,000 naira is there. But we need the agencies that operate in that aviation ministry to have a round table with the airline operators and see how this airfare can be at least, even if it is 5-10% reduction, to reflect the reduction in the aviation fuel. Because we have been told aviation fuel is one of the main critical input when it comes to airline operations.
All right, Charles Fakuga, that's the much we can take on the analysis of some of the top business stories we're tracking at this time. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, and we look forward to having you back in the office again, where we have studio analysis of some of these top stories. Thank you, as usual, for your insightful and in-depth analysis.
Thank you very much, Blessed. I'll be very soon. You will see me live.
All right, then. So you have for yourself a wonderful weekend and a safe flight back home.